CBS Atlanta News presents Public Affairs on Peach.
Good Sunday morning to you. I'm Brandon Rudat, co-host of Better Mornings Atlanta. This morning on Public Affairs on Peach, we are tackling the issue of domestic violence. The most current FBI data shows that Georgia ranks number 6 in states in which men kill women. The odds there are terrible. Nearly 1 in 3 women report being physically or sexually abused by a husband or a boyfriend at some point in their lives. Every day in the U.S., more than 3 women are killed by their current or former husbands or boyfriends. In 2010, there were at least 130 domestic violence-related deaths in the state of Georgia. Last month, a Rockdale County mother, you may remember this story, her 10-year-old daughter was shot outside of a daycare center. Police say it was the mother's estranged husband who pulled the trigger. It is now just the latest domestic abuse case that has turned violent. This morning, we are taking a close look at some of those warning signs.
Clementine Maltabay is a licensed psychotherapist who specializes in trauma, usually brought on by domestic violence.
Knowing how to identify an abuser is really helpful.
The most recent case that made headlines is the shooting of Kimya Motley Roberson and her 10-year-old daughter, Corrine Williams. Police say Roberson's estranged husband, Terrence, waited for her outside this Rockdale County daycare. Investigators say he walked up to her car and shot them both. Kim Roberson had filed for divorce the day before the shootings.
It's dangerous to stay, and it's often even more dangerous to leave.
Maltabay says there are some red flags early on in relationships that people should really pay attention to.
I would say the first red flag, if somebody's really pushing to commit and move in together and all of that very early on.
Maltabay says abusers brainwash their victims into thinking they need them or they need each other. Abusers try to control every aspect of the relationship.
They'll check their cell phone. They'll always want to know where they're going. They'll be very jealous. They'll often have suspicions that their partner is cheating on them when they're not. They might show up unexpectedly when their partner is out with girlfriends.
Some abusers will threaten to kill themselves or their partners if they leave.
I think that that's really just unequivocally a warning sign that it's time to get out.
But getting out can be difficult and also dangerous.
Calling a domestic violence hotline is a great way to get started.
All right, here to talk now more about what to look for and how you can protect yourself is Nicole Lesser. She is the executive director of the Georgia Coalition Against Domestic Violence. Nicole, thanks for your time with us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
You know, let's talk about some of the early warning signs here. When you just start to date somebody, and we just heard in that story someone wanting to check your cell phone, someone wanting to know where you are at all times, somebody who is wanting to get into a relationship right off the bat. But at the same time, somebody would look at that and say, well, that's kind of normal behavior.
Well, it's very tricky, and abusers can be really charismatic. They tend to woo you in, and it can feel like love. It can, you know, this person wants to spend time with me. This person is so into me that they don't want me to spend time with other people. But when you start to look at that, you start to see some subtle concerns. Are they isolating you from your friends and your family? Did they give you a cell phone because they want to be generous, or are they giving you a cell phone to check up on you? And you know, if it's really hard, especially for young people, because they don't have a lot of relationship experience to compare it to. And what we found in our fatality review is that over half the people who have been killed from domestic violence whose cases we investigated, over half met their abuser when they were teens, between 16 and 24.
I think if you asked a lot of people, does your husband or does your boyfriend go into your cell phone and check your messages? If the answer to that question is yes, what does that person do? Is that just a red flag saying, hey, this person may be abusive?
Well, you want to look for
power control.
Sure, you want to look for a pattern of abusive behavior or coercive control. So generally, you wouldn't just have the cell phone as the issue. You'd also have the jealousy. You'd also have the isolating you from friends and family. There are multiple things that you would want to look for. And even if you just have that one warning sign, it's okay to say, I'm a little concerned about that. Maybe I should talk to someone and see if this is something I should really be concerned about. And that's the wonderful thing about the hotlines, a lot of people think I can only call the hotline if I want to go to shelter, and that's just not true. Anybody can call a hotline 24 hours a day and just talk about what they're experiencing and, check in.
Getting into the mind of somebody who is physically abusive, do they usually start off by playing mind games, and it's more of a power trip at the beginning to kind of lure you in, and then once you're committed to them and they feel they have power over you, that's when it starts to turn physical?
Sometimes it's, there isn't one way, but generally it starts off with emotional abuse. If you went on a date and they hit you in the first date, you wouldn't go on a date with that person again. So it's always much more subtle. And when people and the media cover domestic violence, it's generally after it's gotten to the point of physical harm. And what we really want to say to people is you need to be looking earlier than that because it escalates over time. So yes, you would maybe have no warning signs, at least initially, and then over time you might see that kind of controlling, questioning what you wear, who you're going out with, and it would build over time. But a lot of abusers, really don't even show it until after the wedding night. Literally on the wedding night, I've had many victims tell me he just changed. And so,
because he felt he had you locked in, and there's nowhere for you to run.
Right. And it really shows that this is a very purposeful behavior. All
right. One of the myths you talk about on your website, if there's anybody watching right now, they may be in a domestic abuse relationship, their husband or boyfriends may be beating them. They shouldn't think that they can go to couples therapy and get it changed.
Absolutely not. Couples therapy makes the assumption that both people in the couple have equal power. And in a domestic violence situation, that's just not true. And because the batterer is manipulative and charming, most often they'll co-opt the therapist. And what will happen through the couples therapy is she will experience more emotional abuse in that situation.
Okay, somebody who may be watching thinks, yeah, but my husband's different. My boyfriend's different. He can change.
And some abusers can. They have to have the capacity for empathy. They have to want to change. And they have to be willing to do what it takes to change. So they can voluntarily participate in a family violence intervention program and learn different ways of behaving. And they really have to challenge what they've been doing and learn a new way. But many batterers have no interest in that.
A lot of times the victims, we have about a minute left, victims, is there something they can change about themselves so that if they do break up with the boyfriend that they're with, the next boyfriend is not the same type of abuser?
Well, no, because really it's not about the victim, it's about the abuser. And so what the victim just needs to do is listen to her instincts.
All right, very good. Nicole Lesser, appreciate the tips there, and help is always out there. You just have to be willing to ask for it and reach out for it. All right, thank you very much for your time this morning. When we come back, we're going to look at the array of resources that are available to women looking to get out of an abusive relationship.